welcome to Mental Health, the Dutch podcast on mental health in the music industry. Aimed at raising awareness as well as marveling at mental health themes, in every episode we try to give substance to the role of music and artist life regarding this important topic. And today we're sitting down at the backstage of AFAS Live in Amsterdam with two guests that are embarking on a European tour. One offstage, managing the band and tour, and the other one performing in one of our favorite bands. So in this special episode, we're honored to welcoming two members of the crew of editors, tour manager Felicity Hall and lead guitarist Justin Lockey. Felicity, Justin.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi.
Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Yeah, very happy.
Yeah,
Very happy.
good.
Tonight you're playing the second night in Amsterdam
Yeah.
on this European tour. How did last night go?
Last night was great. Yeah, it was. It's. How do you describe it?
It was
It's
good.
hard to describe, especially when you play a big show, right? These are quite big shows.
Right.
You play a big show. It's not as scary as playing a smaller show
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't really compute because there's
Right.
loads of people. But when you're in a smaller show, you can see all those people, and it's scarier. So these are easier shows.
Oh, wow.
For me personally, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So a while ago, we reached out to you, and when the Amsterdam dates were announced, and we invited you to be on the podcast on mental health, and your reply was quite enthusiastically, yes, let's do it.
Yeah.
Why was that?
I guess I'm really open about talking about mental health. I have issues that affect my daily life, I reckon. And I think if you don't talk about it, there's people who don't understand what's going on with them, and it can lead to catastrophic events. So the more people talk about it, especially people in my position, the more people will understand that you should be able to talk about it to anyone.
Right.
And it shouldn't be. And I kind of guess that it's not really a stigma to it anymore. There used to be, you get. But I think as parts of the world have like devolved into chaos, parts of it have evolved into understanding a bit more about what goes on in your head when shit gets rough.
And is that something that has changed, or is it just more a fact that more people are able to talk about it?
I think the more people, especially who hold positions in, like, I'm in a fucking miserable rock band, so I don't say we have any kind of like cultural significance, but we do have people who come and watch us, and like especially over here, quite a lot of people. So I guess it's my duty to say something because someone could listen and could go, oh shit, that's me, that. Maybe I could go and talk to someone about that, or, and maybe it might help.
Right. And is that like what the things that are going on in your head, is that already in regards to your career, or is that something that apart from being in a band is there?
No, I've been this way for decades. I'm 44 now, and I think my kind of, what should I say, situations probably started when I was around 15, 16, and kind of morphed into, I don't know, part of my life. This is part of my life. It's how I get around. It's how I do things. But I try my very best not to let things stop me from doing things. I've been touring the world for over 20 years.
Right.
And although sometimes it's incredibly difficult, I've never not got on stage. I've never not got to the airport, or I've never not, apart from maybe once where I blacked out on a plane on the way to Portugal a few years ago. But I think that was a lot more to do with COVID lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
And because my whole life changed in COVID lockdown. For me, it was amazing because there was no external pressures to be on 5 planes a week going here, there and everywhere. It's like I got stability, home life, and it was great. It was like big weight off. But as soon as the world started opening up again, everything just went.
But that's I wouldn't say maybe funny is the wrong word, but there were so many people in the industry who were like,
Yeah.
there's COVID. Oh my God. Like everything is shut down.
What do I do now?
What do I do now?
Yeah,
I
what's my
can't,
purpose?
I can't do the things that I need to do.
I mean, I think we made a record. We went into a bubble and made a record later on in COVID, I wrote a series for Amazon, and then just played with cameras for 2 years, basically. But I don't know. It's like that's the only time it ever stopped me, and I think that was more being locked up for 2 years and then getting out into the world. I think everyone found that a bit. That transition was quite difficult.
Yeah.
That's the only time this has ever stopped me from doing anything. So I live with it. I can cope with it, but it does take a lot of work.
Was there a difference then before COVID and post-COVID then for you?
No, it feels like back to normal now.
Okay.
I feel like now on this tour and the last couple of tours feels like the tours we did before COVID, where I get touring. Mostly for me, the lead up to touring is the worst part because I just catastrophize about everything, and so it's like rehearsals, production rehearsals. These are all steps that tell me in my mind and my body that I am going on tour soon, which to me just scares me to death. But then once I'm a few dates in, it usually just kind of settles in and I'm in a new routine. And the touring routine, I travel a lot by myself. So I just get into the routine of getting up, checking out of a hotel, either getting on a train or hiring a car and driving to another city. Sound check, show, hotel, car, next, and that's my life.
Right.
But the lead up to that is hell. And I know, because it just affects me in a really bad way.
It's not like training to get ready. It's just like...
It's fear.
Yeah.
It's fear, but it's my specific anxieties are always kind of... They level out as soon as I get to the thing that I'm catastrophizing about. I realise, as I should do every time, that it's actually all right. Mm-hmm. And then I settle. And then it starts the day. So like, if I wake up in the morning, like today, I played here last night. I know exactly what songs I'm playing. And I know exactly what time everything's happening. But I'll wake up and there'll be a split second where I'm like, oh, and then it'll start. And then it'll be, oh, I have to get in a car to go to the gig at 3 p.m. So I'll just be worrying about all the way up to, but as soon as I got in the car, I'm fine. Mm-hmm. And then it'd be like, now, what time sound check? If sound check's 5 minutes late, oh, that's it, something's wrong. And then as soon as I get on, sound check's fine. And then it's just a series of chapters of slight fear, okay, slight fear, okay. But on a bigger scale in my life, it depends what I'm doing.
I mean, what I've noticed is that for you, waiting seems to be a huge thing. Like, this is something that you seem to hate.
And waiting is a
lot of what this is.
Yeah, I mean, this job is 99.9% waiting for 0.1% of doing. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the time I'm all right. If I'm working on something whilst I'm on tour, say if I'm working on some drama script or something like that, I can occupy my brain and then switch off, go to the gig, back to it. Or I'll play my cameras or edit images or something, or I'll watch a film. But I guess if I'm so anxious that I can't physically focus on anything, then it's like a feedback loop, and it just gets worse and worse and worse until the thing that I was worried about happens. Then it's fine.
Yeah.
And I guess I build things up in my mind. So if Felicity says, oh, the car's coming at 3, and if it's not there at 3, I've spent like an hour getting anxious about getting in the actual transport or whatever, then I just spin out, and I can't help it. It's just an automatic response of like, oh, fuck, what's going on here?
Right.
Where's the car? Why isn't it here yet? What's gone wrong? What disasters have happened?
And so that's generally what happens to me. And that can go for long range projects. Like if I know I've got to be somewhere in a year and a half, I'm already thinking about it.
Right.
Even though it's a year and a half away, and then it'll just gradually build until it comes to the fore. And then by the time I've got to that thing in a year and a half, I'll get there. Within a minute, I'll be fine.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's basically how your mind
That's my
works.
life. Yeah.
That's how
you know, I've had probably 20 different types of counselling and therapy, and nothing can seem to shift it. I've done everything.
Did it change for you then? Because you said, well, you had it from your 15, 16 or so. Did it change when you started in, well, bands, playing bigger bands? Did
I
it
think
manifest in some different way or so?
I think it just bands. There's so many impact points of being in a band, like being on. Like I've never had any fear of being on stage. That's a strange thing. The thing that I'm scared about is getting the taxi to the venue. Mm-hmm. Some people would never stand on stage in front of like 10,000 people. See, I don't find that in any way unnerving. So I'm kind of wired slightly wrong. So the little things that most people take for granted every day, they kill me. And the big things that people do very rarely, I'm fine with. It's like flying. Mm-hmm. We get like in our peak season, we're on like 5 or 6 flights a week. It doesn't bother me.
You seem to be like very able to zoom out and just look at it like this is how it should work, but still
there's like a warped logic. It's like taxi to the airport. Don't talk to me. I'm an absolute disaster zone. On the flight, totally fine. It's kind of like my brain sees danger in very nominal, normal stuff and sees zero danger in big stuff. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, and it's not just you that has to obviously it's your life and you've been dealing with or like living this life like since like what you're saying like when you were 15 and also like move over to you, Felicity. It's someone that you need to work with, but like for our listeners, I introduce you as a tour manager. Yes. But like what is it that you do even apart from like supporting or the things that you do working together with Justin?
That kind of hugely depends on the project that I'm working with, but it's basically everything that happens with a tour generally falls under my responsibility. So whether that's delegating part of it to someone else, we have quite a lot of production on this tour, and so somebody else deals with everything technical, but I still have an overview of what we're doing, what needs to change. I deal with booking flights and logistics and setting up schedules for the day and making sure people eat and making sure we get paid and everything like that. So basically everything. And then the extent that I deal with specifics depends on the band I'm working with and what other crew we have in that project. Like I'll still do some where I'm the only person on the road because it's a...
How many people is out with us now? There must be like 20?
We have 18 in our like small touring party and then an extra 6 for these shows.
So she's the boss of all those,
people. But I'll still do tours where it's just me and a band and nobody else because it's some little jazz band that nobody's heard of that it's really fun to do. And so on this tour, I wouldn't be working merchandise, I wouldn't be driving a van, but when it's something smaller, I absolutely would be if that's what's needed. And that's a very brief overview of it.
Exactly, but like a very, very important role as well. I mean, like if you're leading a pack of 18 people.
Leading a small army unit.
I can imagine that.
You need to be at a certain place at a certain time, in a certain mood.
And that's the big one, and it's I think... Like it used to be, I think there's been a huge industry shift in what tour management tends to be. I think, and you will know this more than me, but 10, 20 years ago, it was more, you wanted like an army general type figure in there who was just going to shout at people and tell them, like, if you are 1 minute late, then you're going to get punched in the face. Or like a mob boss type movie type, especially you look back to all those dudes who did all the 70s stuff, all the Stones and stuff, they were just bad eggs. Yeah, they were.
Rule by fear.
Right.
It doesn't work.
Well, I mean, it works for some people.
Or it used to work, maybe.
Or it used to work for some people.
Yeah, I think we're definitely more evolved than that now.
Yeah, and I think that for me, it's what I'm learning, and it is a constant learning experience. But what I'm learning is that if you put the right people into the right jobs, then the logistical side is it's not easy, but it's not something that is particularly overly complicated. But the most important thing that actually makes a tour run smoothly is the happiness levels and the comfort levels of everybody on the road. And that's where I kind of see my job as more important, and it's knowing what little things matter to people.
Right.
And trying to work around those.
Yeah, there's a pastoral element to your work, basically.
Yes.
Where,
Yeah, it is. It's basically, it's great. I'm such a people pleaser, and it's basically making people happy. It's
Yeah, but that goes beyond just making sure that people are being fed and being paid. I mean, like...
it absolutely does. And it's the little things that matter to everybody. It's trying to learn throughout a tour what each of those 24 people wants. And making that happen on a daily basis, even when it's vastly different to each other on a daily basis. And this is, it's a constant learning experience. But working with Justin has been very, very interesting for this because... Challenging. No, I wouldn't say a complete nightmare, but no, it's not. It's been really interesting because he's really vocal about what he actually needs. And so it's now I'm no longer thinking, what do I need to do to make him happy? It's like, okay, he wants all of these things. Everybody else wants something different. How can I set this up in a way that keeps everybody happy?
Yeah.
But that's also very beyond like what people know. Like make sure that in the dressing rooms have like all the blue M&Ms and I mean.
Yeah.
But also saying that, I mean, if blue M&Ms are something that's going to ruin somebody's day if they're not there,
Make me so happy.
No.
All right, consider it done. Maybe birthday special.
Yeah. Felicity is good at keeping me out of things that she knows would wind me up. Basically,
Yeah.
So the time schedule, what you just mentioned, like 3 p.m. having a taxi in front of the door.
Yeah.
I mean, I say this, but today it was 3 p.m. and then 3:15 he left. So.
I don't. It also depends what part of the tour we're on. So at the start of a tour, if things are out of what my mind sees of place, then I get really rattled. Like today, like I've already done this thing once yesterday, so today's like a rerun of yesterday almost. So I'm all right. I'm quite flexible because I know where I'm going. I know what I'm doing, and I know what all the rooms look like. I know what the walk to stage looks like. I know what the crowd's going to be like. So it's different in this kind of, especially like mid flow of a tour. It's a lot easier. So, but say
And towards the end.
Towards the end is. I'm usually just really tired because of the downside of all this is it makes me really tired because my brain's just going like 24 hours a day, and it's really, and when you've been on stage and done like 2 hours of cardio, and it's really hard to switch off, especially if it's like we're going to Antwerp. Antwerp's the biggest show. It's like nearly 20,000 people, or around 20,000 people. It's really hard to switch off when you've done 2 hours in front of 20,000 people and there's pyro going off.
Yeah.
Right.
You try and go back to your hotel room and just like
Sleep.
calm.
Yeah.
It's like, you're like, you know, and if my brain is always like that anyway. So the minute I try and sleep, it's just constant kind of having to text myself ideas and, you know, so, but Felicity's like today, I'll get off stage. I'll probably want to go between 10, 15 minutes straight after the show. I don't really drink. I have a couple of beers through the day and one on stage, like bottles, but I don't drink. So I don't drink spirits. I don't like go out to get drunk. So to me, like after parties and stuff, there's loads of booze. There's loads of people who have been drinking booze for like 4 hours, and there's loads of people who I don't know, and they're always in a small room packed together. It's a total no for me.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, I'm cordial.
Yeah, you did
Everyone,
a good
you know,
45 seconds last night.
I did a good loop.
Yeah.
Bye, see you later. Bye, bye. Yeah.
Where would this happen? Would it be still in the venue?
No,
or
it's
somewhere?
usually in one of the rooms off here. There's a bigger room at the end.
Okay, yeah.
And so I don't like to hang around. And the band are really used to me now doing it. Basically, if we're in the middle of a normal tour and I'll just get off stage, I'll start packing, and then I'm away. They'll go and get on the bus and go overnight to the next venue. I'll like see you at soundcheck tomorrow. I'll be gone into the night, into some hotel somewhere.
Exactly. So this is where you basically separate from the rest of the band, but also the crew.
Yeah. I don't. I'd spend probably most of my time on tour alone.
Okay.
But I'm on stage. But I mean, it's different on days like this because we're in the venue and we're all together all day, and I think we're older now. We don't. When you're younger, there's like this mad camaraderie of being in a band where you're all like best mates going out to take on the world. When you're older and you've got kids, you're not really in that mindset most of the time. You know what I mean? You're like, you kind of want to find a quiet corner and watch a film and not look in the faces of the people that you're going to spend the next 12 hours with.
Right.
So it used to be like you go on a bus, so typical gigs on a, say like a long 5 weeks around Europe. So you arrive at the venue on a bus. Can't do buses, so it's terrible for me. But so you arrive at the venue, you wake up, and then you're in a black box in a country that you don't come from. And then you spend most of your day there, then you sound check, and then you spend a bit more of your day there in a dressing room somewhere. Then you get on stage, then you get off stage, and then you're back onto a bus which travels overnight. There's a theme here, everything's black, right?
Right.
So you can't really see out the bus windows, and then when you're in the venue, it's just a big black room.
With no windows.
Yeah, and most of the time, your dressing room doesn't have windows. So you're basically just cooped up inside. It's kind of like being on a submarine. And then, so you see the same people all day, every day. And then when you try and go to bed at night, they're all there. And they're within less than a metre away. They're sleeping less than a metre away from you in the next bunk. And I did years and years of touring on buses, but I can't sleep on them because the bunks are it's like, if you don't like feeling trapped, it's like being buried alive whilst moving. You know what I mean? Although I have to say, caveat, they are really comfy. They're like floating hotels. You know what I mean? Like, but I used to sit down next to the driver, and then it got to a point where I couldn't even sleep on it. I just had to sit up and watch the road until I got to the next city. Then when the bus stopped, I'd go and get into bed and get a few hours. So then obviously
in the mornings.
Yeah. So then obviously your mental health deteriorates quicker with lack of sleep. And then I did gain the ability to nap anywhere, at any point, at any time. I can just sit there and fall asleep like that in the daytime. But then you'd have your day off after a few days of touring, and generally most bands don't really want to see each other on those days off because you've just spent 72 hours looking at each other, and you're like,
it's very unnatural. Like, even your best friends, you'd never spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week around.
Even your spouse, you don't want to spend 24 hours with anyone because it's just too much.
It's horrible.
But it's 24 hours and lots of pressure at the same time. So all the things that are going on behind the scenes of the band, how's the band doing, how's the album doing, there's all these kind of mad geopolitical type scenarios being gamed out by label management, agent. There's just so many people involved, and then it comes down to a pressure cooker on wheels,
right,
zipping around Europe or America.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, when you add to that, like, everybody's having personal issues as well. Like, everyone has problems at home. They're away from families for a long time. It's not even just everybody's dealing with the stuff that's going on the road. You're trying to live two incredibly different lives at the same time. Yeah. Because you don't want to be neglecting the people back home, whether that's families, friends, whatever it is. But also, you're so insular when you're on a tour that it becomes very, very difficult to juggle the two. And I think that's a huge part of it. And so as soon as somebody's got something small going on at home, it automatically becomes a much bigger thing when you're on the road. Yeah.
And it's like anything. If you've got a niggling injury or something, you just worry because you don't want to let anyone down either. So you've got all this pressure stuff. You kind of have to compartmentalize your brain into your home is over there. This is where you are now. Right. And then when you get off tour, it takes a while to get away from tour mentality back into home mentality. Yeah. When I first started touring properly, it's around early 2000s, I used to get really itchy around 9 o'clock at night when I was at home. After I'd been on a long tour, like 9 o'clock at night, I'd be like slapping the thighs and I'm like adrenaline. I'm like, fuck, what's wrong? What's going on? And I'm like, I don't know. And I worked out, it's when I used to go on my stage time. So I've been doing the same, like, massive influx of adrenaline, 9 o'clock every night for a couple of months around America, or around Europe or whatever. And then you get home and you're like, your body's used to it. So 9 o'clock every night, you're on edge. You're like, what the fuck's going on here? And you can't sleep, and you're like, oh, you know, it's strange. It's really strange.
And does that go away? I mean,
yeah, it takes time. If you don't know about it,
Yeah.
you know, especially when you're first starting out, you're just like, what is wrong with me? You know what I mean? There's something is drastically wrong here because I'm losing my mind at 9 o'clock for no reason whatsoever, just watching the television. But you get used to it, and you just like, you know, I've been doing this for so long now that I can kind of call out all the parts quite easily. It's like little blocks.
You get to know yourself.
Yeah, you get
better.
a lot better. So, you know, you just kind of slot your family over here in your brain and the tours over here in your brain, and then this is now.
But that's already like such a different insight to like how I just imagine, and even myself, looking at people that are on tour.
Romantic.
It's a romantic.
That's
it's about like it's visiting countries and cities and
Yeah.
traveling
with your
the
best
world.
friends.
Yeah, exactly. But this is a complete different insight on what's happening, like that box to black box to black box.
Yeah, but
That's all
you
you
know,
get to really do.
that's
I
all-
mean, sometimes you may get a few hours to go for a walk, but you're so exhausted that you're like, actually, if I could have 3 hours walking around a city and maybe seeing something nice, or 3 hours napping, you're going to go for a nap.
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's for both the crew and the band.
Oh,
Oh
absolutely.
yeah, I mean, yeah,
Absolutely.
everyone's got their own punishment of a schedule to do. You know, the crew are always up earlier and are always in bed later. So, you know, so they've got a longer shift to do.
These shows, like we're loading in, like for Antwerp, for instance, we're loading in at 6:30 and we'll be finished at maybe 2:30. And so, you know, even
That's
without
crazy.
getting to a
That's
hotel
crazy,
and
yeah.
getting to sleep, you're like, 4 hours, this is wonderful.
Yeah, and even like that waiting part in between doesn't make up for like. I mean, it's a shift. I mean, like
It's-
you're on.
Exactly,
It's a
you're
proper
on.
shift, and everyone relies on everyone in this. So
Right.
the band rely on the crew infinitely to have a good show.
Right.
You know, she's got to oversee the whole thing.
So it is a
Make
bit
sure
like
all-
an army.
Yeah, it's all the all the parts have to
Yeah.
work at the right place at the right time every night, and it's really difficult, and that's stressful, and it's stressful for the band as well because we don't want anything to go wrong. But then that puts stress on the crew, and you know it's all matter of tiny things can undo a show.
And I think that's the thing. It's when something little goes wrong, it kicks off this whole chain effect because it can be something so insignificant, but then that'll stress the band out, which will stress the crew out, which will then stress the band out more, and so you just end up in this downward spiral of everybody being antsy because there were no blue M&Ms,
Yeah.
and it can be something so tiny can just ruin a show and a day for people, and that's honestly it's awful.
Yeah.
It's horrible. It's difficult to find a way around that because I think as well when you are spending so much time with people, you start to be able to read them and understand them so very well that as soon as you start to sense that somebody is stressed or upset, it has a knock-on effect on how everyone else is feeling. And I've still not found any...
But that's also the thing, yeah. If you can, when you're around people so closely all day, every day, continuously, you can tell everything without anyone saying anything. So you know, just by the way the person moves their head, oh God, they're in a
What's happening?
bad mood.
Oh no, what's happening? What's
So I mean,
there?
you can just
Yeah.
you pick up, you know, it's bizarre. Yeah, I mean, it's a bizarre lifestyle.
Yeah.
It is, you know, it is like you were saying, it's a very romanticized look, right? And you know, we're really lucky in that we play at a certain level, so our way of doing things is a lot more comfortable than probably 90% of bands, right? 90% of bands really, and you know, we've all done it before. We've all worked our way up from there to here. That's stress. That I don't think if I got offered the chance to go back and start again, I'd be like, no.
Because you've been through that
Absolutely,
as well.
yeah. I did that for years.
Yeah.
I've done it. We've all done it for years, and it's like there's no comfort level there to negate the amount of stress you go through. Whereas here, you know, we had a day off this morning,
Yeah.
and we'll have a day off. We got a day off tomorrow in Antwerp. I'll travel down on the train, and I'll just take it easy. Just taking it easy on a day off. I don't have to go sightseeing. Just something where I know I don't have to be anywhere at a certain time to do a specific
Yeah, that's
thing
a huge bit.
is-
Huge one.
is the best.
Is it
So
something
I'm-
that you deliberately planned on for a day off between shows, for instance, then?
I don't get involved in that. That's
Yeah.
a
On the
booking
planning.
agent
I
thing.
yeah.
But then
What
whenever
stuff
we
to do?
No. Like
when the days
when
off.
the days off are.
I
That's
think-
a booking agent and a
Yeah,
band.
it's a
decision
routing thing as well.
Yeah.
It's another entire podcast to itself. How agents
It's a
work.
tour routing.
Agents are.
Well, we know how they work. They get a map of Europe and they get
And
some
then they
little
squiggle.
darts, and then they
Yeah.
and then they draw a nice
And they go,
squiggly line
so
between
you're
the two.
in Ireland today.
Yeah.
You can definitely be in Sicily tomorrow morning, right?
And then the day after that, you go to Belfast.
yeah.
Yeah, great.
And then you
idea.
go all the way back
Is
to
that-
Belfast.
Is that really how?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, sometimes,
Yes.
especially in festival season, because this is like.
And you're not involved in that at all. Like,
Oh no! Well, I mean, we can kick off if things are outrageous, but you know,
From
This sounds
Ireland to
pretty-
Sicily, it's pretty outrageous.
well, no, it's
Yeah,
just.
I mean, it's-
I mean, last year we did, in festival season, just to set the tone. So this at the moment is like regular touring. So we're put down routes for a day, do a show, on to the next one. Festival, there's no rhyme or reason to it. You are literally. I remember once, and I think I said this when we were in Groningen.
Yeah.
In Groningen, it's like I remember once I woke up in Zagreb, and then flew to northern Sweden for a show, and then I went to sleep in like western Denmark, all in one day.
yeah.
And that was a show, 2 flights, 3 different countries in a day. And I was like, wow, this is a bit crazy. You know, last year we did, and also festivals are usually bracketed by between Thursday and Sunday, right? Most festivals are between Thursday and Sunday. So you've got, like we did last year, we did this one weekend where it was like
Yeah.
Middlesbrough, which is like a town in the middle of nowhere in northern England. And then it was Dublin, but it wasn't Dublin.
It wasn't, it
was
was
the
like a
middle of
middle
Ireland,
of
in the
nowhere,
middle
yeah.
of nowhere. And then it was the day
Promoted as Dublin.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
the day
Yeah.
after that was the Sicily thing, but it wasn't
Yeah.
northern Sicily. It was
Land and then
way
drive
round
for 3
the middle
hours.
of
and
nowhere,
it's
Sicily.
Yeah.
You know, and then after that, Zurich.
Yeah.
And that's in like
Yeah.
4 or 5 days, and you're just like, all right, where are we now? What's going
What?
on?
Is that
Country are we in?
is
Yeah.
that the feeling? Like, where are we now?
Yeah.
Because
Oh, yeah.
You sometimes
You wake up and you haven't got a clue
No idea what
country
day it
you're
is.
in.
because
Not
you're
a
not
clue
seeing
what day it
anything
is.
anyway, apart
see
from
anything.
like you're traveling to that festival, do the thing, and you're traveling to the next to the
Yeah.
yeah,
next
you
one.
just you're constantly thinking in motion. Like last year, I got what's it called? And I've still got it now, and I still get it. I developed some mad syndrome last year from the amount of traveling we did, called mal débarquement syndrome, which is where your body still thinks you're traveling.
Really?
So it's like, you know, when you get off, you know, it's like when you've been on a boat and you get off a boat, you
it's
think,
still a bit shaky.
yeah, you're still shaky.
Yeah.
That lasted for like
6 months?
6 months. Every day, 24 hours a day, my brain thought I was still in an airplane.
You felt you
Yes.
you felt
Like,
you were
if
flying.
I looked at the TV too fast, my body just wanted to carry on, like momentum. It was like, and I still get that, and it's like a mad syndrome. And I've got an ear surgeon and he's like the best ear surgeon in the country, who did an operation on my ear about 10 years ago. And he's like, I went in, I was like, I've not really told anyone about it. I said, I've got this mad dizziness thing. He's like, and I've been to the doctor like 4 times. They're like, there's nothing wrong with you. He's like, and he did loads of tests. He's like, I know exactly what it is. It's called mal débarquement syndrome, and it can last a year. I was like, what brings it on? Stress and travel. What have you been doing recently? I said, I've been on tour. How much touring? About 6-7 flights a week. He's like, yeah, that'll do it. So, you know, and then
There's your diagnosis.
yeah, so then he went away, and then we did that thing in Groningen, and that was fine. It was my first thing back after a few months, and then leading up to this, I got really dizzy again because the stress brought it back on.
And also, I think worried about the flight as well.
I was really worried about the
because
flight.
In case it brought it back on, like
Big
to
time.
here.
to-
To
Yeah.
Amsterdam.
Yeah.
I was really worried. And that, because, you know, we do so many flights a year. I'm totally fine with them. But when I got dizzy, I was like, oh, well, if it's the flying that makes me dizzy, we've got to get this flight to Amsterdam. And in my head, straight away, I was thinking, I'm just going to go on the Eurostar. And
Right.
I'll spend an extra 12 hours of traveling to do the same thing that they're going to do in 40 minutes on the flight,
Yeah.
just to like divert my brain away from worrying about the thing. I didn't. In the end, Felicity said, you'll be fine. It's like 40 minutes. You know, even if it's really bad, you can cling on for 40 minutes rather than the 8 hours of getting up to London, going through Eurostar,
Yeah.
security, and then the 4.5 hours it takes to get here, and it was fine.
And how does it work? Because you mentioned earlier, like, you travel by yourself a lot.
Yeah.
But like you just mentioned, like, doing the festivals, do the festival season.
The festival season is a lot easier. Sometimes I'll drive myself. If it's like, say, like we're doing some stuff in Holland or Belgium, I'll just jump on a flight or anything, and then I'll just drive. I've done some actually pretty mad drives between festivals across Europe before, where you just drive. You do like 4 hours of driving a day. Stop in the middle of Germany in a town that no one's ever heard of. Have a night off.
But you're not waiting. You're driving.
I'm doing something.
You're doing
That's
something.
the thing. Yeah, and I do a lot of my writing in my head whilst I'm driving.
You're writing music while you're driving.
Story, drama.
Oh, okay.
Scripts and stuff. Yeah. So I write everything in my head whilst I'm driving,
and
that keeps me occupied.
Right.
And you're driving alone then, or something from the
I
crew?
always go alone.
Okay.
Unless like Adam, the sound guy, sometimes jumps in. We did a show in France, northern France last year, and he's like, "Oh, can I come with you?" And I was like, "Yeah." You're going back to yeah. It was fine actually. It was good to have a bit of company, but most of the time, having people around me when I'm in a not very good place, I can't deal with it. It just drives it. It just makes me more anxious, more nervous.
And this is
Felicity
what I
know.
struggle with the worst, because all I want to do is like fix everything so he's all right. But then it's so counterintuitive to me. I just want to like be there and like be around him and be like, no, this is fine. And then that is the worst thing I can do.
Yeah.
And so we're still working this one out.
Yeah, we're still.
Yeah.
Because like how do you support like that
How do you
desire?
support someone when you can't speak to the? I know, right?
The band just leave me alone because they know what I'm like. They like to do things on days off, or they're going to go somewhere for dinner. I don't go all the time. If I was just say I'm out on this one, they'd be like, no worries, catch you later. And I've missed quite a few good things because of this, and I'm aware of this. I don't feel as guilty about it as I did 10 years ago, where I felt like I was missing out on everything all the time. Now I know that I'll push myself into certain situations, but sometimes I know when to not push because it'll be detrimental to everything that comes a day after. Yeah. So yeah, it's just.
No, it's difficult. And I think this is the first tour, not festival tour, that we've done together since we've been talking about this a lot more.
Yeah.
And so I think we're still fine tuning like quite a lot of the details. And so on the flight, it was like, all right, well, I'm going to sit next to you so that I'm there if you need anything, but I'm going to ignore you the whole time.
Yeah, and she did.
And
it worked.
And it
Yeah.
And so that was good. But I think with all of this, the fact that we can talk about it is really, really good. And so I'm, for me, learning not to take it personally when he's like, will you just fuck off? Not that he'd ever say,
I wouldn't direct. That's not direct.
I
just
I
usually
think
look the other way and stop talking. But
But yeah, having the conversation about it is really helpful, because it's to me, that's something entirely not what I would expect, because if I'm in that situation, I want somebody talking to me to distract me and talking about something completely different, whereas he is entirely the opposite way. But the fact that we can talk about it means that now we can work around like how we can do this in a way that works for him.
I think it kills people, truthfully. I think people get into either this industry or the entertainment industry in general, and because it's not a normal way of thinking kind of, or a way of going about things, and it's quite hard to put your finger on it, it's quite abstract. I think a lot of people then will just get into something like drink or drugs,
Right.
or they'll get into something that gets them out of themselves.
Is that the reason that people
I think yeah, you can it's almost like it's a pattern of behavior, right? It's a pattern of behavior to, like, if you want to get outside of yourself, the quickest way to do it is to drink, or do drugs,
or do something.
It's like you're not going to go, oh, I'm really feeling bad, I'm going to go for a 10k run. You're not, because you're in a band and you're knackered. You're just going to go, I'm just going to go to the fridge.
Right.
And
Also part of the image, by the way. Like
also,
Well,
yeah,
that's
it is,
the
and
thing.
I think that's a
crazy enough, maybe, but
Yeah.
But it's a big part of it. And I think that used to be the benchmark. Like, you're not a cool band unless you're drunk and like trashing a hotel room every night.
it's
That's
ridiculous.
changed. It's so dumb, and that attitude is changing now as well. So many people don't feel that that's the way. And I think also a lot more people are trying to incorporate things on a day-to-day basis that make them feel better. So like we have a ping pong table which goes on the road with us because it's exercise, it's something to do, it's something you can focus on, it's not touring related. And that's great. Card games, you've all been quite big on the card games this time around.
It's really hard to find something that's not related to entertainment to take your mind off things. You know what I mean? It's like, because this is what we do. We're doing this is, so listening to music, that's a no because I do that all day.
Watching TV shows.
Watching TV shows, it's like, you kind of, the one of the most infuriating things is you've seen the entire of Netflix, Prime, Disney, Paramount. You've seen everything because you've been on tour for years. There's no film that you become an amazing library of film knowledge, but you just, you find it hard, and sometimes there's a really mad boredom in being in a band that it's really hard to describe to people, because it's just like, how can you be bored? You've got like, it's the one industry where you can turn up pissed and be applauded. People applaud you for being drunk. It's like, how can you be bored? You're in all these amazing places. It's like, there's a next level of boredom that comes from touring, which is just like, I'm too bored to even reply to this text.
Yeah.
Because I'm just I'm
such
I'm
an
halfway
apathy.
around Poland in the winter, and I've been on tour for 6 weeks. It's like,
And there's so much guilt that goes with it as well, because everyone looking from the outside is like, oh, this is amazing. You get to travel. You see all these places. You play these incredible shows. Like, why aren't you happy?
Yeah.
And so trying to explain to somebody who doesn't do it or doesn't have the experience is almost impossible. You'll say to friends, well, I'm exhausted. I'm unbelievably lonely. I'm having a horrible time. And they're like, oh, but you're in Venice. Why aren't you?
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, never mind.
Yeah.
And so and you also, you don't really necessarily want to be talking to the people you're on tour with all that much about it, because you want to be very mindful of their mental health as well and not putting your problems on them. But if you can't talk to people that you're touring with, if you can't talk to people who don't tour, what do you do? And so you drink, because it's easy. And
it's quick.
Yeah.
It's quick and it's easy, and it does the job very short term.
And does that also come with a responsibility for you as a tour manager? Maybe not necessarily in relation to editors, but you're managing more bands. Like, how do you comfort like those people, or maybe even starting bands, or the jazz band that no one ever heard of?
I mean, I'm really trying to figure out at the moment how I can make it a mental health friendly thing, and it's never going to be mental health friendly touring, because its very nature is not. But certain things, like saying, look, I would rather that we spend the extra tiny bit of money to have a hotel where we're near a park, for instance, so that people can just get into nature. Or where it's like, okay, well, look, let's book a slightly more expensive flight so that at least people get 2 hours of sleep in the morning. Like little things like this that can make the difference. And also just saying to people, what do you need on a day-to-day basis in order to feel slightly happier? And everybody has really specific things. For some people, it's being around at like 3 p.m. when their kid gets back from school so they can talk to them. And so you schedule sound check times around that. For other people, it's blue M&Ms. For other people, but, everybody has something that
For me,
makes
it's the
them...
bath.
Yeah,
in a
for him
hotel
it's a
room.
bath.
The bath?
Yeah, like he has to have a bathtub.
I'd prefer a bathtub.
Yeah.
So no blue M&Ms, but but it's an actual desire that you have.
Every time that we put out, because we have a travel agent that deals with our hotels, or even if it's just me doing it for one or two, it's like, okay, look, we'll book this hotel if you can guarantee a room with a bathtub for Justin.
You have one now in Amsterdam?
Yeah.
It's nice.
Which is quite rare for Amsterdam.
But we booked this hotel because it had a bathtub.
And it's brilliant.
Yeah,
but
100%.
What does the bath?
Well, it's just somewhere to go and just not think about anything. That's my bottle of whiskey. Do you know what I mean?
At least it's better than a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah. It's like I don't.
Exactly.
So I don't drink and I don't do drugs. So I don't drink to like excess. I mean like. So it's like that. If I want some kind of therapy, I'll go get a bath, and it just sorts everything out.
Mm.
You just always feel better.
And you know this for the rest of the band and the crew as well.
I try to learn about what everybody needs. It's really difficult on a tour this size, especially because we have quite a few older crew on this run, and for older generations, talking about mental health is not something that was ever done.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes it pretty tough because people, and also even for younger generations, people find it very difficult to tell you what they need. And I'm terrible at this, and I talk about mental health so much, and I'm still terrible at being like, actually, this is what I need right now. I'm miserable.
It's kind of like
showing weakness. You don't want to show
but
weakness.
It's kind of like if you're in like a team sport, you don't want to be the one that
That's
moans
letting the team
and is letting the team
down.
down. It's a very similar kind of dynamic. It's like there's peers, pressure.
Yeah, responsibility.
Everybody wants to just be on a level. Nobody really wants to say that they're not feeling it, because then everyone's going, oh, why are they not feeling it?
What's
Or
wrong with that?
the
Maybe we
yeah.
don't. Should we get rid of these?
What's wrong with that person? You know what I mean? Where everyone's got something wrong. Nobody's walking around like fucking sunshine and daisies. You know, everyone's got something that's going to wind them up.
Yeah.
But I think I just got to a point where it's like, oh, I'd rather just say I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
But you're open, and you're
Yeah.
open about mental health and discussing it and talking it. But does that mean that it affects, because you just mentioned this is the first tour that you're open about it and stuff, that you see effect on this tour then with the rest of the crew? Or
Actually, yes. I've had a few crew this time talking to me about really personal things, which has never happened before with this crew. And so I think that part of that is maybe that, you know, we've been together for about a year now, and so everybody knows each other slightly better. I also think, because I brought in a few younger crew who I've worked with before, who I know are very open, very up for talking about these kind of things, and very, you know, the kind of energy that can help. And so I've specifically brought in a few crew like that for this run to see whether that made a difference, and I feel that it has. It seemed like a much more positive touring environment. Everyone just seems to have been happier. And so maybe it is making a difference, or maybe it's just a really short tour, so we've not had time to hate each other yet, you know? Yeah. But no, I think I have noticed a difference, and there have been things that people have spoken about, which previously I don't know whether they would have done, which is really positive to see. And I don't know how much of a difference you've noticed from a band perspective.
Well, they're just the same with me, because, you know, they're used to me, and I never really hid it from the band. I've been in a band like 12 years now. And it was apparent I was very different to the rest of the band from joining. I'm going to be on my own little spot over here, and that's who I am. And they were like, okay, cool. Just do it.
Yeah.
You know, so they
accepted and that's where it goes.
They kind of, they just know, or I must have communicated at some point really early on that I won't do this because of this, or you might not see me on every night out or band get together because I might physically not be able to get there because my brain's gone doolally. But so now that I'm just left in my own little world, you know. But then the upsides of it, I make records, so, and I get on stage every night, and I'm a lead guitarist. So it's kind of like, you know, in order for me to do that, I need to be happy in a way enough that I can get on stage and do that. Or if we're in a studio, I need to be happy so I can make an album, you know, sit behind the desk and I can push things around until it sounds good. So it's like, you know, there's lots of...
But it starts with like talking about it and having the acceptance of your band members.
They just know.
100%.
They just know that's. I think they saw it in my character before. You know, he's a bit odd, this one. You know, and they just got on with it. And I think the more I knew them, the more they're like, this makes sense. You know, he's got these ways of doing things, but he also can do what he needs to do.
Yeah, and I think something that I don't know about whether you'd even agree with me on this, but when you have a family, you're married, you've got kids, you're going to annoy each other. That's a thing. You spend that much time with somebody, you're going to do that. I think it feels very different in this kind of situation because it's a workplace as well as being some really bizarre family environment. And so it's also part of it is being like, okay, I'm going to annoy this person if I do this thing, and actually that's okay because it's impossible for everybody to be happy with each other 100% of the time. And I think for you that must be is that...
I can annoy people.
Can you? I've never known.
Yeah, but I usually just take myself out of the situation. But they I think they just know. It's like I think it's got to the point now where they're like, oh, we're going to go to this restaurant 45 minutes across town to eat some food that we know you're not going to like. And then I'm like, they just won't ask me now. They'll just be like, right, we're going over there. You can come if you want, but we won't go, I'm like, honestly, just leave me to my thing.
Yeah.
And I'm a 44-year-old man. I like my own space. I've got 3 kids. I like to talk to my kids. And I also have other interests outside of the band, which occupy my mind greatly. So I'm never... It's not that I'm not keen to go and like kick about with them outside the band and stuff. It's just like, I've got stuff to do. If I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't expect me to be the center.
And that's okay.
Totally fine, yeah, because they're off going to go do their thing anyway. I'm just like, no. Like on a day off, say like for a day off and I'm actually feeling good and we'll go for dinner, I might go for dinner and go, right, I'm done because I'm going to go back and work on something. And they'll go out into the night. I'll be like, right, I'll catch you later.
Was it also for your previous bands or the other bands you've been playing in?
A lot harder because it was a smaller level, and we still had like major label deal, and so there was money there. It was just different time in our lives. It's like early 2000s. It's just chaos, and I think in that chaos is what I learned what I know now. So when I came back into band stuff, because I took time out of bands in between that and editors, I learned that if I was going to go back and do this, then there's going to be certain things that I will and will not do. Yeah. Simple as.
Because you learned.
Yeah, because I learned if I put myself in that situation, this is going to be the result and it's not going to be great.
And also Editors was a bit of a bigger band.
Yeah, we started at the same time. It's funny because Editors supported my old band years and years ago, and I'd never met them before I joined the band, but they were like second on a bill in London at one of our shows, and I'm like, oh, that band,
that small band,
that band, and it's really bizarre because I've never met them, and then got a call saying come down, and then that's that. Cool. So, but yeah, it's Felicity's right. I don't think touring is in any way could ever be 100% cool for people with like mental health problems or neurodivergence or whatever.
Even for somebody with no mental health problems, I think it creates.
I think it can create them. Yeah, I do. I think it can because it's like
being building this career could actually lead to.
Well, it's just.
It's so unnatural.
It's so unnatural. It's a moonshot, right? Everything. It's like you're shooting for the moon on everything. The margin of error of being a band and being a successful band is tiny.
Yeah. Right.
You're right.
Dying a little.
Yeah. Do you want me to pat your back in a really patronising way?
Yeah. No, that's not helping.
Better now?
Yep.
Just keep it in. The margin of error is tiny. So to even like think that you're going to be here doing it a year after you're doing it is ridiculous.
Right.
Because everything changes. Nobody pays for music anymore. So the only way you can make money as a musician is tour. So then you got to get a band that is able to go and tour internationally, because touring nationally doesn't really do the trick.
Right.
You have to be international. You have to be multinational.
Even in the UK.
The UK. I mean, there's always this thing in the UK. I remember when I first started out, and there was like bands going, "Oh yeah, we've got top 10 in the UK." And I always thought, but it's like a really tiny country. So,
right.
Germany's over there. It's like 5 times bigger. And it's a 5 times bigger audience, 5 times more cities. and then America's over there, and that's even bigger. You know, so I always thought it was quite short-sighted to just be in the UK, but UK musicians have got that kind of swagger that they think because they've done the UK, they've smashed it, until they realise that there's not enough money there, so they haven't smashed it.
Right. Yeah.
They're fucked.
Right.
So you kind of, you know, and when you're starting, so you have to come out and do these long tours, what we're doing now in these nice fancy buses and stuff. You have to come and do these in a van, and that's just punishing. The schedule's ridiculous. You're on tour all year. You're never at home. And when you start in a band, usually if you start around late teens into your early 20s, and you got your friends and family, you start going off on tour, and then the tours start getting longer, like a month, 2 months. You come home and you think that everyone's been on pause. No, everyone's just cracking on with their lives.
Right, yeah.
Right? So you come back and the life you knew when you left completely changed. So everyone's like, oh, fuck. You know, and if you go through a cycle of a normal band, say like they do 2 records, 5 years touring, they're done. 5 years, your entire friend base and everything that you knew when you started out has completely moved on and changed. And you're back where you were 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's a strange life to lead.
And of course you've done it. I mean,
I've done
you were just
it.
referring to the bands that you've been in, and like one of the bands is Master System. That you were in, and speaking of mental health, you were working together with Scott Hutchison. Which is basically the reason that we started off this podcast. To honor him or like.
Well, I mean, you know, Scott's a funny one because, you know, me and my brother's like a director and makes a lot of music videos and does a lot of the big visuals for all these big pop stars and stuff that you see in arenas and stuff. And we grew up together being in bands. We've always wanted to be in a band. And then we started making videos for Frightened Rabbit years ago. So we made must have been about 15 or so music videos for them. We loved them. We loved that band. And then it was just one point, I was like, we should just make a record. Like me and him, and then Scott and his brother, and we just make a record. And it's probably one of the best records I've ever made. I love that record, and unfortunately, it's his last record because Scott was well publicised to have massive mental health problems, and you know, he drank. Everyone knows he drank a lot, you know, and he struggled. I went on tour with him. Even when I wasn't in his band, I went on tour as like a documentary maker with him a few times. I went around America with him. Bizarrely, I don't even know how that even happened. But, that is like a case study in why people with mental health issues are going to struggle in being in a band. Because, you know, and I spoke to him about it when we were making that record. And he was, I don't know, too far gone, too far into the place that he was in. He'd obviously been there for a number of years. He'd obviously had like suicidal fantasies, wrote about them, sung about them.
Exactly.
And then I remember I never got, my biggest regret in music is I was touring with editors, and the only way we could make the tour for Master System work was only like 6 dates in the country. But I was in between a European and American tour for editors, and then there was one day that I could have made the Master System tour and done a show in London, which was his last show. But I couldn't, because I've gone and done an entire European tour and gone straight to America and not seen my kids. I had 1 day to see my kids. So I flew out, saw my kids, went to America, got to America, saw his tweet, called him, and that was that. And I'm like, you know what I mean? It's just fucking... It's mad. And I guess that led me to talk more, because I'm like, well, you know, this has happened. Nobody's really surprised, but yet everyone's surprised. So well, we can't be. I wasn't surprised in the slightest. I was upset,
exactly, shocked, and
and Scott's not the only one. There's many people like Scott, and not just in music, across every industry in every walk of life that can't take it.
True.
And male suicide's like some crazy statistic about how big a deal male suicide is. You know, biggest killer of people under 40 or something crazy like that. It's like, come on, man, that's fucking 2024. what's going on.
And at the same time, like his passing actually led, well, at least in the UK, to like communities, to like the Tiny Changes Foundation, to like it also accelerated a lot of, let's say, positive things. And like in the Netherlands, we are doing this podcast. I mean, like with the reach that we have, but like you see, we kind of tend that people are more open about it, that there's more things happening, there's foundations popping up and discussing this topic, also specifically for the music industry.
And it is, and it, you know, I don't think you'll find any musician, whether they're massive or tiny, who's ever gone through their career without struggling. It's just not gonna. Even like some kid who won a talent show and got world famous on the telly is gonna struggle. Bad.
I don't know if you've touched on this while I was running away, but I think part of the problem is when you've got a career in music as well, like with a lot of other careers you have something to aim for, but in music the ceiling is non-existent because you can potentially just keep going and keep going and keep going. But does that then make you feel like a failure if you're not playing stadiums each night? Like where does it end?
And that's true.
Define
It's
success.
true. It's like we've got,
exactly. How can you define success?
And it shifts every.
It shifts every album.
Every time you hit something higher, there's somebody saying, "Oh, well, you should be doing this. It's better."
Yeah, but it's a strange one, and I think the older you get, the more attuned to it you get. So like with that Sport Palais show, that's the biggest show we'll play inside. Next level up, Coldplay's and your Muses, right? And we know we're not Coldplay or Muse in terms of size, you know. But we've reached this thing, you know. Or doing a Verked headline, which is like they still don't really make sense. Those shows, they're insane shows, but you know, equally, that Master System album is one of the proudest things I've ever done in music ever, and probably about 10,000 people bought that record. Probably less than 1,000 people saw it live. And they'll never ever get a chance to see it again. Yeah, you know. So it's like, how do you measure it? I think the older you get, you measure it by actually just being true to the thing that you did, as opposed to like always wanting the next thing or the next thing, because it could just never stop and you'd drive you crazy.
Yeah, and looking at this and being like, oh, well, we're not Musing or Coldplay level, so that means that we failed. I mean, that's
it's crazy.
It's so that's crazy. It's so dangerous, but there are so many.
But when
people,
you're young.
And
you can think like that, and quite easily, and people around you will tell you like that as well. People in the industry will talk to you like that.
If the industry is wired like that.
If you're not doing this, then you're not a proper artist. Like if you've not hit that level within 4.5 years,
you know, it used to be
you're not famous enough. You're not good enough.
Yeah. When people used to buy records, when I first started out, people still bought records. So you put your record out, and if your record hadn't sold enough in the first midweeks, you get dropped, right? So you spend a year and a half touring, building up your band, making your album, spending loads of money that you don't have in hock to a label you don't really know, and then the day after it comes out, they can cut you loose. In what world is that? In any way developing any kind of artist? That's not doing anything. That's just throwing money at the wall, and whoever sticks gets it. If it doesn't, you're fucked. And that's what it was like. It's like, oh, midweeks, like, Jesus.
What a great career you've built, Justin.
It's like, midweeks. Now, if someone says midweeks, I just laugh and go, you're kidding me.
Who cares?
Who cares? You know? So, So I think, it is what it is.
Yeah. It is what it is. And we're also running a bit out of time because the venue is about to open the doors in some minutes.
Well, not if I'm not there to tell them that's okay. This is kind of the problem.
That's it. People are waiting outside, and also it's coming close to showtime as well. To people that are listening, things that you haven't mentioned, or like some final words that are popping up, like, I do want to express this.
I would say just in a music sense, if it sounds like someone's pushing you and you don't want to go, you shouldn't be pushed. Basically, it's really hard to stand up when you're young to people who go, you should do this or you should do this, but in your brain goes, I don't want to do that. Then you should say, I don't want to do that. Doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, if those people who really want to work with you, they wouldn't push you into something you didn't want to do.
Yeah.
You know, and be open and find bandmates who give a shit.
Yeah, not just bandmates, but management, but label, but people who are actually going to be sympathetic to what you are, what's important to you.
You got to surround yourself with people from this era now,
Right.
Yeah.
who understand that it's not all about, you know, getting pissed and throwing TVs out of things, you know, because there's elements of that everywhere. There's these old school fucking idiots, and it's like. You know, some impressionable kid, some guy comes along and goes, oh, you know, we'll give you this much if you go and do this. Like, no, go fuck yourself.
That's a nice.
You do it.
Yeah, it's a great finisher. Go fuck yourself. That's lovely.
Yeah.
No, I think also, like, we've been very doom and gloom this time around. But I think there's so much positivity in it as well, and there is, and like I wouldn't choose any other career.
Yeah.
Like, it's tough mentally. It's unbelievably difficult for home life, and it has a load of downsides, but there's nothing like it in the world.
No, there's
It's
absolutely nothing like it in the world.
Amazing. And I think being aware that it's going to be bad in places, but also knowing that it can be hugely rewarding.
It's mostly great.
It's mostly great if you deal with yourself.
And if you're truthful to yourself.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, that's a nice
Slightly
ending.
nicer ending, yeah.
That's a better ending.
Yeah.
Well, that's so nice to hear. We were so honored that we were able to talk to you and that you took the time in your busy schedules. I know that you finally had something to do and this kept you away from like waiting.
Yeah, it's good. That's knocked an hour off my anxiety time right there.
It's upped my anxiety
guys.
levels by about 1,000 because of all the things that I didn't do. It's great now.
Yeah, but thanks so much for being on the show and taking the time for us. Have a great time tonight in Amsterdam, of course, and the rest of the tour. Take
Nice
care.
one.
Thank
Cheers.
you so much.
And that's it for this episode of Mental Health. If you've got any questions or tips about this podcast, send them to info@mentalhealth.nl. For more content, check out our Instagram or mentalhealth.nl. And as always, we'd like to share, do you struggle with mental problems yourself? Or are you worried about someone? Open the conversation, because talking about it helps. Thanks so much for listening to Mental Health, and see you next time.